Hello friends, it's Kathy Clement with Kathy by Design. Welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. This is a weekly tutorial series that I do here on my channel where I share ideas and inspiration to get you into your crafty stash and make something beautiful. This is the last week in the month of June 2025, so it's time for our Wind Back Wednesday tutorial. We are working all this month with Stamperia's Hidden Grove. I did a full feature on the papers in this delightfully whimsical collection. I'll put a link to that up in the corner. And today we're redoing a card folio design that I did last month for Timeless Moments. So we've got this 5 1/4 by 7 1/4 inch top fold card folio with a little mixed media cover, a mushroom house, our sweet little gnome lady, little wooden mushrooms, die cut foliage, a little mushroom charm, and then this opens up, and in the top we've got a wonderful pull out mechanism. Here's this little flap that opens, here's a flap that goes up. I just love the images and I wanted to feature them. We've got a little pop-up feature. We have both a lateral waterfall and a staggered waterfall, and I'm going to show you how to do both of those. And then it opens out this way. We have a little flip flap page and a little side pocket with a couple of cute journal cards tucked in there. Behind this panel, because this panel is actually a hidden pocket, we have an adorable tag just made with fussy cut paper elements. So cute. And a little journal card with a tiny clip on the top, room on the back to write a note. And this is made just with a graphic 45 tag and the tag die and fussy cut elements. And then down here in this pocket, we've got a couple of little note cards. Well, a note card and a bookmark topped with vintage lace, super cute. And it comes together quickly and easily. I think you're going to love it. So if you'd like to learn how to create this adorable card folio with Stamperia Hidden Grove, stick around because the tutorial is coming up next. All right, friends, I want to get started building this card base. This is a real simple top fold card. And I have 2 pieces of this Cloudy Sky 100-pound cardstock from Spellbinders. The first one is 8.5 by 5 1/4, and the second one is 11 by 5 1/4. And I cut this out of 2 separate pieces of paper. I've put 1/4 inch Scor-Tape on the bottom edge, and it doesn't really matter which one you do. And I'm going to take this Scor-Tape off, and I'm going to bring in my other panel, and I'm going to use that tape line to help me line this piece up right over that Scor-Tape. And now we've got this nice long panel that we can score and fold into a card base. So I'm going to bring this in. I'm going to score at 7 1/4. And I'm going to fold. Then I'm going to score, let's go 1/2 inch, and I'm going to fold, all right? And that gives us room to add our little folio on the inside. Get this lined up in that corner, all right? And I'm going to score again at 7 1/4. Okay, so we've got this long piece. I want my pocket to be about 3 inches high. So I'm going to bring in my cutting tool. I'm going to line that score line up at 3. Then I'm going to cut. I'm going to trim this piece to a width of 1. And I'm going to cut it approximately in half at, let me see, let's say 2 5/8. So one piece is a little longer than the other. Doesn't really matter. These are going to be our side gussets. And I'm just going to score these in half. This is just going to hold our pocket sides in place. So here's our card base. All right, we've got this long piece on the bottom and we've scored here. We're going to add gussets, these gussets that we cut. And I've just folded them in half. And the folded edge goes to the outside edge of your pocket. Just like that. And you want to be flush, top and sides. The whole idea is that this can't be seen. All right. The reason we use a gusset is that it gives us the full width of the pocket, and it also allows you to fit a little bit more in there. All right. All right. And then this is just going to fold up. And we have this very nice pocket inside our card. I've lined the inside of my cards with 5 by 7 inch white panels. And then down here I cut a 4 3/4 by 12 inch, lined the inside of the pocket and had this piece here, but as you can see, it's a little short. So my remedy for that was to cut a 2 3/4 inch piece of my burlap paper. It was just a little scrap. And I'm going to put this over here on this side. So it's sort of like a feature. And then I fussy cut these adorable, this was from a little paper scrap that I had. So I'm going to put a tiny piece of foam tape on the outside edge. Like here. Oops, that's the inside edge. Get that right. So say I put a tiny piece there, and then I'm just going to glue the rest of this down. And it ends up looking really neat. And it kind of brings a little bit of the outside design to the inside. And this just goes right here on the pocket. On the inside, for this top portion, I've cut 2 11 by 6 inch panels of our cloudy blue, and I joined them together, and then I scored every 5 inches. And when I got to the end, I scored an extra 1/4 inch, and that makes this little flap that goes over the top. We need to put gussets on the back. So I cut 2 that are 5 1/2, 1 by 5 1/2, and these are going to go on the sides. Ooh, that came out enthusiastically. And we do these just like the other gussets. And this is going to hold this inside the card, but it also creates a hidden pocket. So we can tuck a journal card. It's very similar to the Ciao Bella Timeless Moments card that we made a few weeks ago. So if you made that one, you'll be familiar with this. And then this one on the bottom is 5 by 1. And it goes like this. I'm going to bring in my scissors. And I'm going to trim out these corners. I'm just going to snip off a little triangle because I think they'll actually fit better if I do that. There we go. That's better. I like that better. All right, we're not going to glue this in yet though, because it's a whole lot easier to cover this before we put it inside. All right, friends, we're going to get started with our little book. And the very first thing I want to do is place magnets. So these are basic gray magnetic snaps. They're my favorites. They're really hard to find now, sadly, because basic gray has gone out of business. 49 and Market has some, but they don't have the beautiful adhesive on them that makes the basic gray so easy to use. So I'm going to put a little Scor-Tape over there. That's my insurance policy in case the adhesive on that magnet fails. And then this magnet will go right over that magnet. And I'm going to line this up so that everything is nice and straight. Press that in place, and now these magnets will meet. And then I also want to place magnets between these two pieces. So I'm going to put a magnet here. You don't want to go too close in, too close to the edge. I like to go about an inch in because that way I can get my adhesive over my paper. And then all right, so now our magnets are placed to line up and we're ready to start covering our pages. We're going to start with our front flap, and I've cut a 1 3/8 by 5 7/8 inch scrap. I think this is from the 12 by 12. I'm pretty sure I used this on last week's Froggy card. So this is going to go right here on the front, okay? Bring in a little trash can for myself. I'm going to flip this open. I'm going to take the adhesive off our magnet. And here's the same size 1 3/8 by 5 7/8. All right, over here, I'm going to take our adhesive off. And I've cut a 4 3/4 by, actually I think this is 4 7/8 by 8 inch piece of Mrs. Badger from our 8 by 8 pad. And then I scored this at 5 3/4, folded the flap down and rounded the corners. And this is just a little front flap page, super easy. And then I took this little happy home and we're going to put this here as a turn tab. So I'm only going to put adhesive about halfway up. Okay, and this flips up. So that's that page. On this page, we're going to do a lateral kinetic waterfall. And I've done quite a few of these. They're not hard. So what we have to start with is 2, I believe these are 4 3/4, yes, by 4 inch pieces of our 8 by 8 paper. And I've scored, this is the bottom panel. We're going to call the piece with the leaves the bottom panel, and the piece with the moon we're going to call the top panel. And on the top, I scored 1, 2, 3, 4 1/2 inch score lines. one of these score lines is going to go back behind like this, and we're going to put a little adhesive on the outside edge. You don't want to put too much because you don't want to glue these two panels together. So you don't want it to run over. And just line this up. Okay, that looks really good. All right, and then I've cut from my scraps. This is a 1" by 5" piece of patterned paper. And I'm going to come up about 1/4 inch above the bottom edge. Let me move this out of the way so I can lay it down and you can see better what I'm doing. Okay, I'm just going to fold this gently over. I'm not pulling this into a super tight crease because this has to be able to slide up and down. So you want it to be secure but not snug, if that makes sense. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. And then I have this little 1" piece to go over the top to cover up our little mechanism. So it looks just like this. All right. Now when you pull the bottom, your mechanism will slide up and down. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit for the glue to dry, but it does, see? It slides up and down. So we're going to glue in our little images. And on the bottom, I want our cute little gnome. And I'm not going to do this like staggered. I'm just going to do this a normal waterfall. I'm going to put my adhesive, just a thin bead on this edge. And I'm going to glue this down just below the fold. Not over the fold, because if you go over the fold, it won't work. Okay? Then I'm going to come in with our next image, which is this little house. And our little squirrel. And finally, I was calling her a hedgehog, but I think she's actually a badger, Mrs. Badger. And she's going to go on the top edge. All right. Set this aside for a moment. Bring our pullout in. And I have this piece that is cut to 4 3/4 by 5 7/8. And I'm going to glue this down. And if you want to go 4 3/4 by 5 3/4, you can. I like narrow borders. So this is going to fit right in here. And we're going to secure it by putting adhesive only on the back of this band, nowhere else. If you put adhesive anywhere else, your mechanism will not work. So just that little band, and glue this in. I want my strawberries to show. So I'm going to put this right here and press that band into place. I'm just going to let that set for a minute. But you can see I'm being real ginger, You can just see how our pages flip. Isn't that so fun? I love these. I never get tired of making them. Over here, we're going to do a vertical kinetic waterfall. And again, well, it's easier to do this before I put that page in. So for this one, you're going to cut two 2 5/8 by 5 3/4 inch pieces. And this one, we're going to call this one with the strawberries the bottom panel, and this plain one we're going to call the top panel. And we've scored 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 score lines. We're going to do the same thing here. This is the same principle, just one's vertical, one's horizontal. Fold this over the back. Here's our little band, and this is cut to, and it's a little over 3.5, but not quite 3 5/8. It's just a scrap, but it will work just fine. So I'm going to set this down. I'm going to put this behind. See, this goes behind both panels. And I've folded my little tabs. A little bit of adhesive here, doesn't take a lot. Glue that down. Same thing on this side. Then I cut, what did I say this was, 2 5/8. So this little scrap is 2 5/8. And it's going to go right over the top like this. Okay. So you can see this will now move like this. All right. And once again, I've cut out, these are from the 8 by 8. These are the little, I think they're 2 by about 2 5/8, I think. And I always start on the bottom. I'm going to put my adhesive here. And because this is a staggered waterfall, I'm going to glue this one down on the outside edge. Okay. Then I'm going to take this little For You, I'm going to put it right in the middle, just below the fold line. I'm going to take our little gnome and I'm going to put him over all the way on the right. You get the picture? Then this little guy, I'm going to put in the middle. And Mrs. Badger is going to go all the way on the left. Okay, so see, now it's staggered. And I'm being real, again, I'm being real careful because I need time for that glue to set in place, all right? And I'm not going to put anything along the header, and I'm going to put this over on the right-hand side of our page. And our glue this time just goes on this little 1/2 inch band that's at the bottom, all right? And this is going to go over here on the right. And now we can glue this whole thing down into our pull-out mechanism. That's the perfect place to put it, actually. All right. So see, now we pull this and we have a little staggered waterfall, and it's teeny tiny, so it's super cute. All right, let me get the next page set up and we'll move on. All right, so this is our front flap page. Open this and then flip to here. And from the 12 by 12, I cut out two 4 7/8 by 6 7/8 inch images from the bottom of the page, and then I put them in close. I'm going to try to make a pop-up element. I trimmed this out from the front cover and leave a little bit of the paper below that's not an image, and you're going to score along that, and then you're just going to fold your image in half and crease it, and then where you folded, see, I just cut a little angle cut. I'm going to come in with some Scor-Tape. I'm going to put it on these little flaps. And I want to make sure that I don't go over. I don't want this to end up sticking to the page. So I'm just going to do like this, right there. Okay. So I'm going to line this up like this, because this is where I want it to be. And I'm going to peel off one side of my Scor-Tape. And I'm going to set that one side of my image. And then I'm going to close this like this. And you can see how I have, whoops, you have to have the folded part. Let me try that again. You have to have this folded part lined up with your crease. So this can go here. Let me just press that down really well with my bone folder. See, you get a little pop-up and it's cute. So this closes and folds. And I want to go ahead and crease this really well, so it will fold right down into there, like that. And then it pops up. And then if you want to, I fussy cut some of these guys. I thought I was gonna try to put these in also as pop-ups, but they don't fit. They're too long. So I can take him and I'm gonna trim this side off. I'm going to fit him right in this corner so we don't cover up our little ladybug, which is super cute. Some paper towel. And then I also had this guy. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to cut this extra bottom part off. They were just too long. They didn't fit. And let's put him right here, and we'll cut like even with his boot. So he'll go right here, okay? And I had creased these, but if I put my adhesive in that crease and then use my bone folder, the crease pretty well disappears, which is nice. All right, so we just built a little scene. Isn't that cute? So it closes and it pops up, just a little pop up, but it's cute. Okay, so that's those 2 pages. I'm going to go ahead and do this page, and this is going to be a fun little flap page. So I've got my 4 7/8 by 5 7/8, and then I fussy cut from the 12 by 12 this really good mushroom house, and this log, our steampunk froggy, behind him I want to put this big blue gear, maybe right there. All right, so that's the little hidden picture. And I cut out these images from the 8 by 8 and matted them on 4 3/4 by, I think these are 3-inch pieces of cardstock. Scored a 1/2 inch flap on the side. We're going to line this one up at the bottom and fold our flap behind. And glue that one down. And then we're going to line this one up. Oops, not that. This up at the top. And glue this flap down. Super simple. Peel off the tape from our magnet. This is really cute. And glue this down. And you can see on the back side, I just put a little journaling spot, but there's Mr. Frog. So we've kind of featured all these great guys. I'm going to leave this open for that glue to finish drying. And we're just going to do a little side pocket over here. This scrap is left from cutting the panel for the companion page. And it is just about 7 by, of course, 5 7/8. And I scored it at 4 3/4. And we're just going to do a simple U pocket. We're not going to do gussets or anything. This is going to be really quick. And fold those flaps down. Then I went into my scraps and I found some of this blue paper. I didn't have enough to do everything. So I cut this to 2 3/8 width. And this is going to go on this front flap. And I'm overlapping. All right. I've got a little mushroom right here. And I've got my little squirrel buddy. So I think the way I'm going to do this is the mushroom's going to be back behind. Like this. And then the squirrel going to go on the top. Like this. And in the pocket, you can take from cards and tags. You can make little tags, whatever you want to make there. I want to just cover the mechanics of this, not so much the embellishing. And then this is going to glue in. And then I tucked a couple of little tags from the tags and cards in to the pocket, and that finishes the interior. So this is our entire little flip mechanism. So fun. There's our pop-up, there's our waterfalls, both the lateral waterfall and the staggered waterfall. I added these little gears on there to make pull tabs, so it's just a little bit easier to move the waterfalls that way. So that completes all of this. I didn't do a tutorial for the cover because of the interest of time, and it's really so very basic. I have a 5x7 piece of our white cardstock, and then 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 of burlap, and then 4.5 by 6.5 of patterned paper that has the strawberries on it. And I stitched the patterned paper onto the burlap, added some die cut foliage from my stash, spattered with paint, and then added this little wooden, I love this little gal. I don't know, let's call her Lucille. Doesn't she look like a Lucille? And some little wooden mushrooms and this chipboard mushroom house. And from the tags and cards created this little sentiment up here with a mushroom charm. So that finishes our card folio inside this pocket. I just did a simple little insert with one of the tags and cards, took a scrap of cardstock and created a really pretty bookmark to go down here. And you could add whatever you wanted. I topped this with some lace, some antique lace, and a button. So that's kind of fun. And that completes our tutorial for Wind Back Wednesday using the same design that we did for the Ciao Bella Timeless Moments, just a different look because of different paper collection. I hope you enjoyed creating this fun folio with this sweet paper collection. It's been a great month, hasn't it? I'll be back next week with our July tag of the month, and I think we're going to do something with bees. That sounds like fun to me. And I'll put a linked supply list on my blog and the link to my blog in the description box below this video, along with the basic measurements and score lines. So that is it for me this week. Kathy Clement, Kathy by Design. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go get your craft on, friends. Bye.